Welcome to Planetary Gig Talk, Tales of Music and Magic. I'm your host, Jefferson Glassy, Chief Spiritual Dude of the Planetary Gig Society, whose mission is creating unity through music. But as I like to say, really, making connections through music with the intention of bringing peace. And today I am in Studio One of the worldwide headquarters of the Planetary Gig Society, and it's a real pleasure to be able to talk by Zoom all the way to Copenhagen to a now good friend, and I'll tell you how I met him, and his partner in musical crime, Master Bo and Tina Israni. Master Bo and Tina, thanks so much for taking the time to talk with me today.
Oh, you're welcome. It's a pleasure.
Yes. So I have to tell everybody how this happened, because things like this seem to happen more to me, or maybe I'm just observing them. But we were on vacation, and we were in Copenhagen, and like all the tourists, we went out to see the Little Mermaid statue, Hans Christian Andersen inspired statue. And we're standing there with all the tourists and taking a picture, and the beautiful water is out there, and I hear this music, and it's something that I hadn't quite heard before. And I turn around, and there's this fellow over there sitting and playing what seems like inside-out steel drums. It has a beautiful sound. So I walk over. He continues to play. And then we start talking. And then I bought his CD. And then we started talking about singing bowls and gongs. And he says, well, I have a whole collection. I said, oh my God, that'd be great to see. He said, come over. And so I went over the next day. We had a great conversation. He told me a number of interesting things, including about a sound bath, which we're going to talk about. And I ended up buying a singing bowl. So that was quite a coincidence, Master Bo. And I'm so glad that we were able to meet up like that.
Yes, that was really an amazing meeting we had there. It was like it was meant to be, in a way. And I'm so happy you took the invitation to come to my singing bowl and gong cave. and it was really nice that you was interested in getting one bowl home to yourself as a souvenir from Denmark.
Yeah, it fit right in the luggage. I put clothes around it and whatever to pack it.
Yeah, and you know what? I noticed actually that I put 3 or 4 bowls on the table, so you had something to choose about. And it was actually the very first bowl you took in your hands that you said, this one I like.
Yeah.
So this made a good impression on me, because I know it has got a good home now.
Yeah, thank you. It does. It's right here in my home office, the Studio One of the worldwide headquarters of the Planetary Gig Society, and very appreciative. Maybe just the first thing, and then I have some other questions. But that day you were playing what you say is the handpan.
Yes.
And could you describe that just a little bit? I'm gonna add a clip when we post this, because I took a short video of you that day.
Yeah.
But what is a handpan?
Well, it's actually something special, because it is the steel drum that has been further developed, and it's the newest instrument we have at all in the music history, because it was only invented in year 2000.
Wow.
And completely randomly it was invented in Switzerland, because there was some steel drum players from Trinidad that they had some friends, a couple in Switzerland. So they brought one of the small steel drums to this couple, and they said, we have actually been wondering about, will it be possible to reverse the shield? So we have the tunes on top of the shields. And this couple, they say, well, we don't know but we can try. And as the couple from Trinidad, they went to bed. The couple, they went into to their place where they do all the physical heavy stuff. And actually, they worked there the whole night. And in the morning, they had developed the handpan.
Wow.
So they succeeded actually in building a handpan. And the most funny thing is that even though that later they put the recipes on the internet for people all over the world to build the same instrument, it has absolutely never been surpassed ever. So what they have been creating in the first talk, it is completely similar to the Stradivarius within the world of violins.
Huh. That's amazing. It's a beautiful sound. I mean, it really is. And anybody listening should just definitely check it out. And as I say, I'll post a little clip of that. But now let me just go to the first question I like to ask. First Bo and then Tina. When did you start playing music? How did that happen? Was there music in your family? Did you take lessons? What instruments did you play?
Yeah, actually, I was not a musical child from the beginning. We had music in my childhood because my mom, she played grand and the big piano.
Yeah, grand piano.
Yeah, exactly. And me and my sister, we loved it when she was playing this grand piano. But one day when we came home from school, it was gone. And we said, where the hell is the piano? And my mom, she said, well, we exchanged it for a new television.
Wow.
So they were the first guys on our road to have a television in black and white. But we were very, very sorry. We thought it was a really bad exchange.
Yeah.
Well, but later on, as I became a teenager, I was still attracted by music, so I tried to learn the guitar and play that.
Uh-huh.
And I did that for some years, but I never succeeded in finding a good teacher, so I became just average, medium good for playing it. So it was not a happy marriage with that instrument, actually. So later on, I came across a tenor sax and was very fascinated, and actually I played it for a few years. But then for some economical reasons, I had to sell it at some point. So instead of acquiring a new one, I started to play the piano, and that gave me a very good feeling. But, I never went that far that I could play even a whole melody. But for me, it's cozy sometimes and go to the piano and play. But then I was introduced to this world with the internet and YouTube. And one day I was just surfing around on YouTube. Randomly, I fell across a very, very strange sound like from outer space. And this was a handpan. And I had not even heard about it, ever, never. And I really opened up my eyes so widely. And it just came into my heart, yes, this is going to be my instrument.
Wow, that's awesome.
Yeah, really. I had such a deep feeling that this was the instrument waiting for me.
Wow, that's really special because it's a beautiful instrument. And you know what you talked about with your mother or parents trading the piano for a television is sort of like a metaphor for the world.
Yeah.
People have traded in, real music for fake communication sounds or something.
Yes, exactly.
So Tina, I know you're hanging out with and doing some interesting sound work or whatever, and want to hear about that. with Master Bo. How did music come into your life? How did you have, same kind of question? Did you have music in the family? Did you take lessons? You play a particular instrument, and how did you end up, doing sound baths with Master Bo?
It's a crazy series of stories, but to start somewhere, so I was born in New York, but my parents are Indian, and in the Indian heritage, Bollywood and music and dancing is really, really big. I kind of grew up listening to that stuff, watching Indian movies and dancing, doing dancing lessons. So really moving my body to music at a very, very young age, and performing, in New York City at 5.
Wow.
So dance and music, or movement and music, have always been sort of one experience for me, and also singing. So even using your body as a musical instrument, both in dance and in singing. And we actually also would play this game. It's called Antakshari, which is where you sing songs based on, whatever letter you end up on and stuff like that. And so then moving on from there, I played the viola and played a flute, and also was in a district chorus and district orchestra. But as my teenage years kind of came about, I think I was going through so much that I lost touch with that. Obviously listening to music and things like that was around, but me playing or singing or anything like that kind of stopped. And it was actually recently, in the last few years, that I was also trying to deal with some mental health issues. So I kind of, I've lived in New York, and I've also lived in India as well. So we did a lot of mantra singing there as well. But in the last few years, when I was here in Denmark, so I've lived in Copenhagen for about 2 years, I also came here to just take a break from my crazy life in New York of ex-Wall Street entrepreneur and all this stuff.
Wow.
And finally deal with some mental health stuff. And I heard a sound like a singing bowl around the time that I was going through some like spiritual search and reconnecting with those roots, but in a different way, without the dogma and, all of this kind of fixed ideas on what is spirituality. And that's when I came across my first singing bowl. It was actually in upstate New York. I went to a shamanic retreat because I was interested in shamanism, because I thought, okay, at least with shamanism, there's no kind of fixed ideas of religion and things like that. And when I came to Copenhagen, I knew I wanted to follow this sound healing journey. And when I was ready, I was going through some cognitive behavioral therapy to deal with my depression that I was avoiding for most of my 20s. And but when you go through such therapy and such healing, you also need like some kind of healthy breaks from all that analyzing, like, oh, am I doing it again? And I found this woman who would play gongs, and she had a sound healing studio here. And this was about 2 years ago. And I was like, okay, that's crazy that this exists in Copenhagen. I couldn't even find it in New York. This is amazing. And she's from Lithuania. And I used to go to her sound baths while also going through cognitive behavioral therapy. And it was such a nice break. It was such a nice way to see how I was inside through feeling, and not just my head, and getting out of my head and more in my body. And it was actually through that I met this shaman that I now work with, that I've been seeing for 2 years. And I've gone through all these different kinds of therapies. And then to the point that I decided earlier this year to go through the Gong training, because last year I actually also did a Reiki master training, and I'm also a Reiki healer now. And I was thinking, this sound stuff did such great things for me with my depression, and also Reiki has. I would love to combine the two. I never saw myself as a musician, but this is the magic of what happens when you open yourself, with curiosity and a bit of courage. And in May is when I did the Gong training, and that's where I met Bo. And when we met, there was this sort of magic. It was unexplainable. Like when we would hug, there would be this like sort of energy there, and we didn't know what it was, and I don't know, it wasn't romantic, but it was like this like raw creative energy. And I've never really, I hadn't touched an instrument since district orchestra when I was 11. And we started to play together. We had this. It was the third time of our meeting. We played here, actually in his place, and it's like we lost track of time and space, and it's like we were just one in this sound wave. And I was like, I just knew we had to do something with this. And he was like, hey, I have 2 sound baths scheduled. Do you want to play together? And I was sort of like, wow, he believes in me. And I was like, I don't know what I trust him, and I know he's had so much experience. And I know I'm meant to do something with this healing energy that is beyond just this lifetime. But maybe this is the way, you know? And the irony is, when I look back at my life, the thing that my parents believed in was something called Surat Shabad Yoga, which is light sound yoga. And here we are working with Reiki and sound healing energy in this undogmatic way. And we've only had like 3 sound baths so far, but the experiences have been just incredible. And so we're calling ourselves Ritual Sound. So for each of our sound baths, there's a specific intention. So for the most recent one, it was something like ritual remembrance of where you're from. And I mean, it was, how we landed from that journey was indescribable, in that everyone was just silent. They didn't know each other, and they just sat there smiling. So they sat there in silence, in connection, not in this hiding, in this with each other. And there was this one particular instance, which I'll leave you with. I was playing some of the bigger Japanese folds. This particular one, it's a G note, and I just started playing it, and I just started to cry, but not in this I'm weeping, just tears were just flowing, and I didn't make a noise. It was fascinating. There was 4 of us playing. There's 20 people in this room, and it was after the end of the sound bath that this woman came over to me. She was like, was someone crying? And I was like, yeah, it was me actually. And she happened to come to me, and she was like, yeah, I was crying too. And I was like, when did you start crying? She was like, when I heard you cry, I started to cry because I was remembering my home, where I grew up, which was in Africa. And it was sort of she was like, gosh, I had forgotten about that. And I was like, okay, there is something magical here that we must do something here and protect it also. And it's sacred. Yeah.
Wow. So you guys you're blowing my mind over here in the United States. This is just really awesome. So many things that you've said are resonating. You know, one, just to a little bit of a tangent, but I've been reading a Sufi book about mysticism. Is it Hazrat Inayat Khan? Is that his name? Anyway, some of the stuff I've read that talks about from the Indian perspective.
Yeah.
Oh, yeah, that's the book. We were talking about it. Yeah. What's the name of it? Can you read the name of it? Because I forget exactly.
Tina can do it.
The Mysticism of Sound and Music. The Sufi teaching of Hazrat Inayat Khan.
Oh, well, you pronounce it better than I do. But, yeah, I've been working through that, and there's even a story about how I got to that book. But they talk about the 3 elements of music, music being the voice, and then dance, and then the instrument. It's very interesting. So, you kind of, we're doing the singing and the dance together. But I think, we may not have a million hours to talk, although I think we could, but it would be great if you could both sort of describe this sound bath. I think, Bo, you talked with me about it, and you showed me a sort of an outline of it, but if you could maybe just talk about that and summarize a little bit about it so that folks who are listening might be able to understand what is a sound bath.
Yes. The whole idea about the sound bath is that you get your soul purified. We go around with so much mental rubbish always. And unlike the computer, we cannot say stop to our brain. So often, if we want to have inner silence, we cannot stop the brain from all the work it's doing, all the the time thinking about future and the problems we are in. And actually what we are doing in the sound baths is that it is based on singing bowls and gongs, and the specific hallmark for these instruments are that they are so filled with overtunes. And overtunes are not so commonly used here in the Western world, but in the Eastern world, they emphasize it very, very strongly because they know that these overtunes have a deep impact on the soul. And one of the impacts is that our brains, it goes very, very rapidly from our functional brain state that is in the beta state down to alpha state. And normally it's only people who have been meditating for many, many years. They can do that in half an hour. And this is happening during a sound bath in less than 3 or 4 minutes. So it's an amazing way of kind of get back of the ego and let the ego kind of surrender, because the ego has no explanation for what is going on. So the ego has to surrender. And that means that we can go into our inner silence. And what the gongs and singing bowls are doing also, it's like when my physical piano goes out of tune, I phone the piano man and he comes and retune it. And it's actually the same here with our bodies. When we hear the overtunes from the gongs, the singing bowls, or from a voice, we get retuned because our body, it works like an instrument. Mm-hmm. And this way we get tremendous help to coming back to harmony deep down in every cell of our body. And we can do that by no other means.
Wow.
It's actually been proven that like everything we hear, our vocal cords actually mirror that. They tune into what we hear. And that fits into so many little things, like, a thought is an action, is something that's out there. But everything we hear, we already tune ourselves. Literally, it's been proven for vocal cords. And to connect it to Sufi mysticism as well, Rumi, a 12th century Persian mystic, talked about how the body can be like a reed flute. And if we're that empty, then the sound can kind of flow through us.
Wow. And I was one of the I just find this fascinating and so cool. I was talking with Bo a little bit about, I had I fell on the steps and I tore my quadriceps tendon and I had surgery, and I was kind of into this stuff a little bit. So I read something, so I bought some tuning forks, and I would put the tuning forks around my knee, and Bo said, well, it's just, I don't know if that's going to work. You need somebody to do that to you or for you. And a healing bowl is probably more profound in a way, but so Tina, the sound bath, from your perspective, what is going on there, and how does that work, and what about, I guess, how do we all take advantage more of this beautiful thing that we have that people aren't really checking out too much?
I mean, like, one thing is that our aspiration with ritual sound is that everyone has at least one singing bowl. And one thing from a mental health perspective that I do for myself is I have a singing bowl, and for the things where my mind just won't stop, or I know I'm stuck in a downward spiral, I just play my singing bowl. And you can also put it on different meridians of your body. Like, you can put it on your heart, you can put it above your head, you can put it on your foot, like near your feet, and you can actually feel sometimes sound travel up and down. I actually did this ritual with 2 of my friends on Saturday, a new moon ritual, where one friend made a fire and we were sitting by the sea, and we were exposed to all 4 elements. And I had my shamanic drum with me and also the singing bowl. And we played the singing bowl, and I played it on their head and then all the way down their spine, so where I could provide healing through that. And I also do that in my one-on-one treatments, like where exposing like the sound so closely to different parts of the body where you can actually feel the vibration because we're 80% water. There was actually one experience that Bo showed me where we put water in a big singing bowl and then we turned it, and then you can see how the water vibrates, right? Then as you turn it more and more, you can start to see droplets start to jump. Then you turn it more and more, and then the water just starts jumping around. And it's for me, it's like I think a lot about water, and if you leave water stagnant, then that's how, you know, it becomes bacteria in Britain, and it becomes not impure, but just disease-ridden. So if you don't kind of move the water around, even in like ponds and stuff, they have those fountains to keep moving the water around. This is that. It's like you are submerged in this sound wave and also energy in our case, because we have Reiki flowing and also being carried on a sound wave. I mean, I just would say get to as many gong baths as you can. And that's also our aspiration, to do as many sound baths, because we do involve like singing bowls and gongs. And I mean, my personal favorite is the Earth Creation Gong, which is right behind me. When I play that one, it's like I am just one with it.
Yeah. Whoa. Well, it's so awesome. Really, you know, and this, it just, I guess it was meant to be, Master Bo, to have so from that first hearing of your hand pan. And I mean, I wish we could talk for a lot longer, and maybe we'll have to, but, we did talk about, coming to the U.S. and doing some sound baths. So if you can, we'll try to make that happen if you can arrange it. And, you know, any other sort of, you know, that we've had this good conversation here, but anything you want to mention that I might not have asked about or that you want to add before we wrap up?
I think one thing on my side is we want to also kind of use these sound baths as like a preparation. Like one thing we're doing is we're hosting a community dinner this Sunday, and we're going to have a sound bath first so that people can sort of like cleanse themselves, come back to themselves, and then they'll be more ready to connect. And then also in like corporate scenarios, like instead of a team building thing where you're just kind of like running around and I don't know, you know, doing something like maybe it's archery. This is a way where we can build authentic connections, but this is like that preparation to get to that space inside yourself. So then you can then regard one another in the same space. But I like this New York, like, or just going around the States. It'll also be interesting for me to rediscover my own country as an American. But doing something called tuning salons, or like salons like back in the day, like cultural kind of thing. But calling them tuning salons where we're tuning into ourselves and then into each other.
Wow, this is great. So I want to learn how to do this. And, you know,
we would love to do that and come to US and do it.
Yeah, well, that'd be great. So tell you what, we'll be posting this podcast pretty soon. Of course, if anybody's listening, they're already listening to it, but and we'll try to supplement that with some information. If you have websites or anything like that you want to mention or send to me, I can, you know, post them at the time too, and feel free to, you know, repost, and let's try to get everybody on the whole planet having a singing bowl, healing bowl.
Yeah.
You gather around, you know, a singing bowl instead of a TV for a change.
Yeah.
It's perfect. All right. Yeah. Thanks so much for taking the time, Mr. Bo and Tina. Really appreciate it.
Okay. And thank you so much for your interest.
Yeah.
Oh, it's so cool. It's amazing. Yeah. Thanks very much. You've been listening to Planetary Gig Talk, Tales of Music and Magic. I'm your host, Jefferson Glassy, Chief Spiritual Dude of the Planetary Gig Society. We talk with musicians and others about the power of music and how we can use music to help create a better world. Please check out our website, www.planetarygigs.org, for information about some of the organizations promoting music and musicians, resources about the power of music, books, movies, articles, including new research on music and the brain. We welcome your support. The Planetary Gig Society is a Section 501c3 charitable organization, and you can donate on the website. You also can receive a free email signature block demonstrating your support for Planetary Gig Society. Please follow us on Twitter, Instagram, and Facebook at Planetary Gigs. And we want to thank fabulous musician and teacher Eric Weinberg of Little Eric Studios for the Planetary Gig Talk music titled Chill Kid, It's Saul. So please check out Planetary Gig Talk on iTunes, Google Play, and Stitcher. Subscribe and hear all the upcoming episodes. Thanks very much.